So my name is Kell Wilkinson. My pronouns are they, them, if you are referencing me in any way. So I work for the National Active Minds office based out of DC. I also have a colleague here, Robin, who will be helping with the management of the webinar. So if you have any questions, continue to send that to the all panelists chat option and we will handle it from there. But anyways, so I'm Kell. I actually, though Active Minds is based out of DC, I'm one of our very few and lucky remote staff members all the time because I live and work all the time in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is my home. So I've had the privilege of working on the ground and remotely with some of our regional partners for some time. And I've got to say, we've been so intentional about learning from each other and collaborating. So I am quite happy to welcome and introduce all of you to their work today. So I will, in a little bit, allow Maddy from EMBRACE Pittsburgh, as well as Dr. Carla Chugani from the University of Pittsburgh to introduce themselves. But before I get started and turn it over to them, I just want to share how excited I am for this webinar topic today. I don't know about yins. Oh, you know what? I should also say, by the way, if you hear me say yins, yins is Pittsburghese for you all or you all. It's a kind of traditional language we use around here. But anyways, you know, I think it's right now for a lot of us, it's relatively normal to experience relationship challenges. I know personally I believe many of us are facing, pardon me, additional stressors that impact, you know, how we set limits and expectations with ourselves and other people at this time. And I also think that regardless if you're living alone or with housemates or partners or family members, I include pets in my definition of family members as well. But, you know, I believe this conversation today will allow all of us to build on some of our existing relationship and communication skills with others. So before we get started, I'll handle some housekeeping. So if Maddy, perfect. So just a couple things so you know, we are recording this webinar. It will be posted later on the Active Minds Remote Resources page. Throughout the webinar today, just so you know, the video is not on for participants. The video is only on for panelists and our interpreters here today. If you're interested in the participant list, you can change your name or adjust your name if that is something that you would rather do. So just know that that option is available. You just have to go to the bottom of the screen where the participant list is, and you can find the rename option there. Other things to know, the chat option, as you can see, will be available throughout the session. There are two ways you can message. You can message just to the panelists, or you can message to panelists and all attendees, and we encourage you to do both of those things. And then just a couple other things. You can raise your hand. That's another way that you can signal that you're interested in providing feedback or asking a question. At that point, we will be able to unmute you and you can verbally ask the question that way. So again, that kind of captures some of the housekeeping opportunities. We will have a survey at the end with a bonus giveaway, so do please stick around for that for as long as you can. And most importantly, just please feel free to engage with us and have some fun. I think this is, you know, it's a topic that is really important for a lot of us right now, and I'm looking forward to continuing to learn and engage with all of you. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Maddy at EMBRACE Pittsburgh to do a bit of an introduction as well.
All right, thank you, Kell. Hi guys, like Kell mentioned, my name is Maddy Collins. I work for EMBRACE Pittsburgh. I am the digital media and marketing specialist. And before I pass it along to wonderful Dr. Carla Chugani, I'm going to give a brief overview of what EMBRACE Pittsburgh really is and how we've been helping our city cope with COVID. And we're going to be jumping around between speakers a bit. So here's just a quick overview of everything that's going on in today's webinar. I'm going to do the intro, and then I'll pass it on to Carla, who can talk about the relationship skills. And then we're just going to have closing remarks from Kell, and we have a fun little giveaway at the end of the webinar. So if you guys stick around, we'll have a fun giveaway. All right. So some of you joining us today might not be from Pittsburgh, and you might kind of be like, what is EMBRACE Pittsburgh? And we are a mental strength movement that is created from Citrone 33. And Citrone 33 is a collective that focuses on strategic philanthropy. And the founder of Citrone 33, Cindy, had a goal, and it's to make her favorite city, Pittsburgh, a champion of mental strength. And EMBRACE's goal is to teach our city different skills and tools that can help live a happier and healthier life. And these skills and tools literally spell out EMBRACE. If you guys kind of look in the background image, we have the bridge with the different signs. And if you didn't know, Pittsburgh is the city of bridges. And these letters and skills literally spell out EMBRACE: empathy, mindfulness, balance, resilience, acceptance, and coping. And this can all lead to enlightenment. And by practicing these skills, we can sharpen our focus, manage stress, and strengthen our overall health. And EMBRACE, being a collective, has partnered with different organizations within the city, including Active Minds, to help teach these skills. And now, in the past couple months, COVID has really taken a toll on people, and especially their mental health. We've seen reports on higher stress levels, increase in support systems in Pennsylvania, and EMBRACE wants to help be a part of the solution to make us a happier and healthier city during COVID. And we're helping spread tools that can help people cope with COVID. And we believe it is more important now than ever to have these skills in hand and to stress and maintain a healthy well-being, which is why EMBRACE launched our initiative, Coping with COVID-19, with our Mind Hacks videos. And we've been working with the Pittsburgh Penguins Foundation on a video series called Mind Hacks. And Mind Hacks are quick 1 to 2 minute videos focused on teaching different skills like how to self-soothe, how to cope ahead, and skills on how to build distress tolerance. These videos, they kind of remind me of like Schoolhouse Rock. You know, they're quirky, quick, and they always stick in your head months later with valuable information you'll use down the road. And these videos are also research-based, and we've consulted with different Pittsburgh doctors to help develop this series along with a curriculum. My favorite part about these videos, being from Pittsburgh, is that they include Pittsburgh celebrity cameos from some of our favorite athletes. And if you know anything about Pittsburgh, like, our athletes are our celebrities. We worship them. And we have athletes like Jerome Bettis and Troy Polamalu, who are both Pittsburgh Steeler Hall of Famers. And they give different tips and skills on how they handle stressful situations that Pittsburghers can relate to. These videos, when created, were designed to cater towards middle school age students. But what's really great about these videos is that anyone can learn from them and use them. How I think of it is kind of like when you go to Target or Walmart and you see a board game and it says ages 3 to 99, like, that's our Mind Hacks videos. They can be used for anybody. And you can learn these skills from the comfort of your home, in your quarantine space, in your living room, or in your office on your laptop. We've been working on these videos for the past year, but we wanted to share these videos right now with everyone, with everything going on with COVID-19. And right now I'm going to play you guys one of our videos. It's the first video we launched, and it's on self-soothing.
We're all in quarantine, we have anxiety, and we're stressed out. We're all in the same boat. Well, check out our Mind Hack videos to help get you through
it. Sometimes life is peachy. Everything seems to be going your way. Zero complaints here. But you know what? Things aren't 100% awesome 100% of the time.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
So for times you feel down or stressed or anxious, I've got a mind hack I go to all the time. It's called self-soothing. Soothing. Just saying it feels nice. I've come up with a list of things for all 5 of my senses that make me feel better both physically and mentally. Things like catching a sunset, listening to my favorite music, baking cookies, cuddling with my dog, and going for a bike ride at the end of a very long day. Now it's your turn. Think of at least 10 things that you can use at a moment's notice to get yourself feeling made in the shade. Made in the shade. Check out what my friends like to do. Take it away, friends.
Hi, I'm Joyful Malu. One of my mind has gardening. Fresh raspberries.
Oh, look at you. It's only been a few days and you're so big.
We know.
And soon you'll be ready to get eaten.
What?
Nothing.
Hi, I'm Colby Armstrong, and I like to doodle. Here's my buddy Sid. Never looked better.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
Hi, I'm Brian Russ, and I like to wrap myself in a fuzzy blanket.
Awesome stuff. I love it. I need to try a few of those things out. Still feeling anxious? As always, never be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes we can't hack it alone, and there's always strength in numbers. Smoothing.
So this was the first video that we launched, and we launched another video a week after on the skill stop, and it's a great skill to use for distress tolerance. And if you guys can take anything away from Embrace today, I'd want it that you guys try a skill at home. Try self-soothing at home and practice this skill in your living room with your family and friends. And that way we can help each other cope with COVID and build a happier, healthier city during this time. We'll also be launching more Mind Hack videos throughout the week. We have a gratitude and kindness one coming up. And if you guys want to keep up to date with these, you guys can visit our website, embracepittsburgh.org/mindhacks, or follow us on our social media channels where we release all these videos and more tips and resources on how to cope with COVID. I am now going to pass it along to Dr. Carla Chugani, and thank you guys for your time. And Carla, I will stop sharing my screen now.
Thanks, Maddy. All right. All right, is my view correct, or do I need to swap displays?
Swap.
Okay, does that look correct?
We still just see you.
Okay. What about now?
No.
Okay, let's try again.
There you go.
Okay. Now let's see. Do I need to swap?
Now swap.
Now swap. Okay. What about now?
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So sorry about that. We've been dealing with the loveliness of technological glitches and the limitations of our own skill sets today. So thanks everyone so much for coming to this webinar. My name is Carla Chugani, and I am an assistant professor of pediatrics at the University of Pittsburgh. And today I'm going to be talking about interpersonal skills. And so before I get into talking about the skills, I want to just talk about why, when I was asked, like, you know, could you teach us some coping skills for COVID-19? What first came to mind for me was interpersonal skills. So the pandemic has placed a lot of stressors on us, and we aren't necessarily used to coping with many of these stressors. And in particular, a lot of us are either spending time, more time alone, or a lot of time in close quarters with other people. And so in either case, knowing how to get what we need from other people in a time like this is absolutely critical. And it's critical for both our mental health and our well-being. So interpersonal skills are really the building blocks that help you set limits with other people in your life, as well as manage and negotiate expectations with others. And so that's why I thought this would be a really important thing to talk about. And it's something that doesn't seem to be getting quite as much attention in the coping skills stuff that's happening these days. So I hope that this is something that's useful for you guys, and sort of a different take on what we can be doing to keep ourselves mentally healthy and well during what is undeniably a very stressful time for everyone. So as I go through the presentation, I want you all to feel very welcome to ask questions if you have them. And there are two ways that you can do that. You can either send the panelists a chat, and Kell is going to be reading your questions because I actually can't see the chat box when I have my screen share going. You can also raise your hand and Kell will unmute you. You won't be put on video, but you will be unmuted so that you can actually ask your question and we can talk about it. Okay, so just want to highlight that I am totally fine with being interrupted, and I welcome your thoughts and perspectives as we go. Okay, so here's just a little bit of an overview of what I'm going to be talking about today. The skills that I'm teaching today are called DBT skills, so I'll explain what that means, and then we're going to get into our interpersonal effectiveness skills. Okay, so what are DBT skills? So DBT stands for dialectical behavior therapy. And DBT is an evidence-based treatment for chronically suicidal and self-injurious behavior. I'm an expert in DBT, and I'm basically on a mission to teach people DBT skills and to make it such that we are not losing young people to suicide. That's sort of my personal and professional mission. So DBT is kind of a complicated treatment. It's a very time-intensive treatment, and we're not going to be talking about that today. But there's one component of DBT, which is the DBT skills, that I think are just so broadly applicable to everyone's lives. And when we teach DBT skills, we focus on 4 core areas. So we teach mindfulness skills, we teach emotion regulation skills, and that includes both skills for decreasing the intensity of negative emotions as well as increasing the amount of positive emotions that you're experiencing in your life. We teach distress tolerance skills, which are skills for tolerating uncomfortable situations that we cannot change in the moment, like right now, right? Like this pandemic. And then we teach interpersonal skills, and that's going to be the focus of today's presentation. And the skills that I'm teaching today, normally, if we were doing this in a group therapy, it would take like 6 hours to teach. So if you don't understand all of this immediately upon this, the 30 minutes or so that I'm going to be presenting for, that is totally okay. That is totally normal. There's nothing wrong with you. And there are a lot of incredible resources out there related to DBT skills. And if you Google the names of the skills, lots of really cool videos will come up. All right, so before we can start learning the skills, we need to talk about priorities and goals in interpersonal effectiveness. And today we're going to be learning 3 different skills. But the first thing that we need to do before we can learn the skills is be able to identify which skill we're supposed to use for our current situation, right? And so this is why we need to look at what's my priority, what's my goal, what am I trying to get out of this situation. So sometimes we just want to get our objective met. So for example, let's say that you have a roommate who is perpetually late in giving you their share of the rent, and you want to ask them to please give their rent check on time. Right? Let's say that you are going to tell your parents that you're not coming home from school this summer or something like that. So these are examples of times when we're either kind of concretely, we're either asking for something or saying no to something. And our main priority is to get what we want, right? I want that rent check. Or in the case of saying no, sometimes it's getting the other person to accept our no, right? So that's our objective. Sometimes our priority is building and maintaining our relationships. So sometimes, even though we might have an objective that's involved, like for example, telling our parents that we're not coming home for the summer, we ultimately care more about the security of the relationship than we do about the objective. And so that we have a special skill set for when keeping the other person or the other people feeling good about us is kind of the main thing that we want out of the situation. And then we have skills for building and maintaining our own self-respect. So sometimes what's most important to us is acting in a way where we're going to feel good about ourselves after the situation, or adhering to what we think is right. So when objectives is the primary goal, getting an objective, so I want to ask for something or I want to say no, we use a skill called Dear Man. And the dear part of Dear Man is what you say, and the man part is how you say it. So we're going to go through the dear part first, and then we'll go through the man part. So people don't always know what we're reacting to or what happened that's causing us to come to them. So we need to orient them to the situation first. So the D stands for describe the situation. And when we describe, we want to be non-judgmental and we want to stick just to the facts. The reason that we want to just stick to the facts of the situation is because it helps to reduce defensiveness in the other person, right? So there's a big difference between saying, you were a huge jerk the other day, and saying like, hey, I want to talk to you about that conversation that we had the other day where you told me that you thought my idea was stupid, right? So obviously from that first line, the person knows that you're going to be confronting their behavior, but there's still a big difference between approaching the situation off the bat, calling the person a name, or describing more non-judgmentally that, you know, I want to talk to you about what happened the other day and specifically when you said this thing to me. So we start out with the describe. The next thing we do is we want to express our feelings. And in our popular vernacular, a lot of times we say, I feel, when we mean I think, right? So I feel that this is wrong really means I think this is wrong, right? So when we say express your feelings, we mean use feeling words, right? So I felt hurt by what you said. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm furious. I'm elated, right? Use feeling words and say clearly how you're feeling emotionally. The A stands for assert yourself. So this is the part where you either ask for what you want or you say no. And notice how this doesn't come, the actual ask or the no doesn't come until the third step in the model, right? And this is a little bit different than usually the way we are taught to communicate. So when you assert yourself, this is where you just make your direct request. So for example, if we're going to continue to work together, I want to ask that you not call me stupid or use other derogatory language toward me. Or if you're saying no, you might say something like, I need to tell you that I just don't feel comfortable continuing to work with you. Okay. And then the last piece of the dear part, this is the what we say, is the reinforce. And this is another thing we are often not taught to do. But what it means is that you want to end by giving the person a reason why they should give in, right? Why should they give you what they want, what you want? Why should they accept that you're saying no to them, right? And so sometimes the reasons can be very tangible, right? So if our business that we started is going to be more profitable if we do this thing or we stop doing this other thing. That's a really powerful reinforcer. Sometimes it means something else, like I'm going to be so much more productive, if I'm not exposed to this irritant. If you stop scheduling me with this person who I can't stand, I'm going to be so much more productive at work, right? I wouldn't say it like that, but the point is sometimes there are really tangible reasons that people can really latch on to, like we're going to be more profitable, I'm going to be more productive. Sometimes it's more nuanced though. Sometimes it's just a really sincere, like, gosh, I would just really appreciate it if you would do this for me. I would be really thankful. So that's the dear part of Dear Man. And so if we put it all together, what we get is, a pretty tight way of expressing ourselves in a pretty non-threatening and respectful way to another person. So to give an example, let's say that I get assigned to do a group project with a colleague. I've always hated group projects, but science is a team sport, so it happens. So let's say that I'm assigned to this project with a colleague, and when we had our first meeting, she basically told me that all of my ideas were stupid. And I don't particularly care about my relationship with this person. She's not my friend. She's not my boss. My main goal is just get through this assignment and get this task done, right? So that lets me know that basically I want to use Dear Man skills, because my objective is let's just get this task done as painlessly as we possibly can. Although there is an element of self-respect here in terms of maybe wanting to stand up for myself, mostly for me, I just want to get the work done. So here is what the dear part of my Dear Man would sound like. Hey, Karen, I wanted to talk with you about what you said to me in our meeting yesterday. I felt really hurt and frustrated when you called my ideas stupid, and it made me feel uncomfortable about the prospect of continuing to work with you. I can totally accept that we're not always going to agree, and I just want to ask that in the future, you please don't use that kind of language when you're talking with me, because I think if you can do that, we're going to have a much better time working together, and our work is just going to get done a lot more quickly. So does that make sense to folks? I actually teach this to my students on the first night of classes as well, it's a great skill set for asking for extensions on assignments and extra credit. And I always tell my students, if you email me a Dear Man, you're pretty much guaranteed that I'm going to give you what you're asking for, because I'm going to be so excited that you did a Dear Man. And I've had students sort of practice Dear Man on me and then take it out and use it with other faculty who don't even know what Dear Man is. And it's also been, they've reported back that they've been very successful with it, and they've gotten folks to give them what they're asking for. So I really encourage you to use this, especially when you're beginning with Dear Man. It is kind of hard, I will acknowledge, to remember all the letters, but if you write it out in an email request, then you can refer to this resource. You can refer back to this PowerPoint, or you can Google DBT Skills Dear Man. It'll come right up, and you can just follow the letters as you're crafting that email. Okay, so we did the dear, let's do the man now. The man is how you say what you're saying. So the M stands for be mindful of your objective and don't be distracted. So especially in really tense situations, sometimes the other person is going to do any number of things that are going to distract you from your objective, right? They might bring up past fights or disagreements. They might bring up all the times that you've been wrong, right? They're going to do a lot of things that kind of can distract from your goal of getting what you want. And so you really have to stay mindful during those times. Ignore the attacks, ignore the threats, and be like a broken record. So keep asking for what you want or saying no over and over and over again. Some people think that they can't just say the same thing over and over again, that they have to sort of come up with like a different way of saying it. And you don't have to do that. You can just say like, no, I need you to please agree to not use derogatory language with me if we're going to work together. Well, blah, 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 right? You know, I heard you say that something was stupid that one time in the office. Okay. And I need you to please not call me stupid anymore. I need you to please not. And you can just be a broken record, because if you respond to those attacks and threats, then what happens is that's what the conversation becomes, is you engage in it and then it continues. Whereas if you don't engage in it, it's not going to continue as much. The A in Dear Man stands for appear confident. And I want to note that what this can look like can vary really widely between different cultures. So please keep in mind as I'm talking that you want to use what's culturally appropriate for you and your situation. So if we're thinking about me and my situation as somebody who was raised in America, then generally appearing confident means sitting up straight or standing up straight, making eye contact, using a clear tone of voice, and generally avoiding behavior or language that would make me seem meek or overly apologetic. Okay? So appear confident, whatever that looks like in your culture or whatever is culturally appropriate to the situation, because sometimes, like me, I'm US born, my dad is not. And so it does get a little tricky. So think about what is appropriate to your situation. And then the N is for negotiate. So sometimes in life, you have to be willing to give a little to get a little. And so if you make your ask and the person refuses, don't just give up, right? Sometimes you can actually get them involved with the problem solving. And that's what we call turning the tables. So if they say, you know what, so let's say I'm asking for a raise and, you know, I haven't had a raise. And so I want a 10% raise, right? Woo. And my boss says, well, no, I mean, we can't give you a 10% raise because that's just, the money's not in the budget. I might say, okay, well, you know, I understand that that amount of money is not in the budget. And you know, my performance evaluations have been great and I haven't had a raise in 2 years. And so how do you think we can solve this situation? You know, if you can't give me a raise, are there other ways that you could reward my excellent performance here? Is there anything that you can think of? And so it's just the idea of sort of, instead of being at odds or getting into like a stalemate with the other person, inviting them in to join in the problem solving with you. You know, this is really a tough situation. What do you think we should do here? You know, what ideas can you come up with? They might surprise you and come up with something really great that you didn't even think of. All right, so I made up some situations to give us a starting point for what Dear Man might sound like. But I have always personally found it more fun to practice Dear Man on the fly with the participants or the audience that I'm working with. And so what I'd like to invite you to do is, if there's anyone out there who has a situation where they either need to ask for something or say no to something, submit some of the details of that through the chat, or raise your hand and Kell will unmute you and you can share a little bit about it. And just to be clear, I won't force you to do a Dear Man on the spot in front of everyone. I will model what the Dear Man is going to sound like.
All right, Mara has raised her hand, so we'll start with that. Mara, I'm going to allow you to talk. You should be good to go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, one question that I have is, how should I effectively communicate with my family when I feel like I need alone time, when we spend so much time together?
Yes. Okay. I have heard this one so much lately. This is a great one. Are there any things in particular that your family is doing that feel particularly invasive to you? Or is it more of just a general, I want to ask for more alone time?
I think that, so I have two sisters and we're all quarantined together.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a great relationship. We're all friends. And so I think that sometimes when I want to go do something by myself, one of my, like, for example, last night we ordered takeout and I was like, oh, I'll go get it. And one of my sisters was like, oh, I'll come. And then I don't want to be mean and say no, but I'm also like, I want to go by myself, you know?
Totally. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a stab at this for you, and then I want you to give me some feedback on how well I did.
Okay.
Okay. In terms of the skill, as well as if it felt relevant for you. Because if it doesn't feel relevant, we'll try again. All right. So, hey, sisters. As you both know, we've been quarantined together for the past however many weeks. And it's been a challenging time for all of us. I've loved spending time with you and I care a lot about you. And I've also felt frustrated at times because I'm just not getting enough alone time. And I wanted to ask if it would be possible that when I go out to run an errand, that you let me go by myself instead of offering to come with me, so that I could just get a little bit more time to myself. And I know that this might be a little hard to hear because probably you guys are dying to get out of the house too. And I just sort of feel like, you know, if we all are getting our needs met, which for me includes having a little bit more alone time and space, then we're going to be able to get along that much better while we're all in quarantine together.
That was perfect.
Woohoo! All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for being brave and chiming in. I really appreciate that example. And if we have anyone else out there who wants to give a different example, I'd be happy to do another one.
We have a couple in the chat box, Carla. So we have one from Elisa. My middle school and high school sons won't do their homework under COVID. I'm worried that they will fail 8th and 12th grade. There's two more I'll read to you too. We can pick or whatever. But so we have another one that says, we are trying to share one office computer and my partner gets testy at times, even though I try to give him a heads up when I really need it. Similarly, we have one, how do I effectively ask for help from my co-parent when it comes to homeschooling our kids? So that we can build off of those ones.
Okay. So the first...
we also got two more in the Q&A. So if we run out of questions to answer, we've got a couple more.
Okay. So the first two, the one about the sons, the middle school and high school sons, I think that one is sort of in some ways a more complicated issue than just communicating that we need to do our homework. That might actually be a combination of the Dear Man and the Give skills, which we'll talk about the Give skills next and come back to this. And then Kell, remind me what the second one was? The office computer?
Yeah, sharing an office computer.
And then there was asking my co-parent for help.
When it comes to homeschooling.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's try to quickly do both of those. All right. So So I am sharing a computer with my office mate, and they're getting testy at me, even though I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job of communicating when I really need this computer. So, hey, person that I'm sharing this computer with, we'll call this person Marcy. Hey, Marcy. I have noticed that when we've been trying to share the computer, even though I've let you know that I need the computer at certain times, there have been moments where you have raised your voice toward me or used language that indicated that you might be angry with me. And when that's happened, I've felt a little bit frustrated because I think that I'm doing a pretty good job of communicating to you when I really do need this computer to get my work done. So I totally get that this is a really challenging and frustrating situation for both of us. Sharing one computer means that neither one of us are totally getting what we need all the time. And I just want to ask that, when I share with you that I do really need access to the computer, that even if you're frustrated, if you could not grumble at me or yell at me, I would just really appreciate that. And it's going to make our working relationship so much better. So I want to note there, I did add in some of the give skills, specifically the validate, right? And we'll talk about that in a minute. And also with the describe, one thing that you want to keep in mind is that you want to describe the specific behaviors that let you know that this person is being testy. So in this example, I made something up because I didn't have the specifics of the situation, but you want to describe specifically for them what are the behaviors that they're doing that let you know that they are testy. Right? It's not good enough to say you're being testy with me. What you want to say is you're yelling, you're using language, you're using X, Y, and Z types of language, or, you're really getting into my personal space in a way that makes me feel uncomfortable, whatever the concrete description of testy behavior is. And then the next one that we had was the asking for help with co-teaching, right?
Mm-hmm. With a co-parent.
With my co-parent, yeah. So, hey, co-parent, as you know, we both are sharing the responsibility for co-teaching our kids. And in general, I've been doing this for about 3 to 4 hours a day, and I've noticed that you've maybe only been working with the kids for about an hour a day. And I feel pretty annoyed and a little abandoned, to be frank with you, because I'm putting in so much more time on this than you are. And I want to ask that we please come up with a plan for how to split the co-teaching equally. And I know in the long run that if we do this, this is not only going to be of the most benefit to our children, but also this is going to help us continue to get along well as co-parents. Okay, so in the interest of time, I do want to move on because we're supposed to end at 4, right? Ooh, okay, all right, I'm going to move on. All right, so we did Dear Man, now we're going to do give. So for those times when it's not our objective, but it's actually the relationship that's most important to us, that's when we use the give skills, right? These are the times we want to keep the other person feeling good about us and the relationship. So the G stands for be gentle, right? And for a lot of these situations that you've brought up, whether it's the one with the living with the 2 sisters, the co-parent, sharing the computer, or working with the kids, these are all times for give skills, right? Because you can be gentle, act interested, validate, and use an easy manner while delivering a Dear Man, okay? So being gentle means that you're courteous, you're respectful, and you're kind in your approach to the other person. And what this essentially is all about is that old saying about you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. That really applies here. So don't attack the other person, don't threaten them, don't be judgmental, right? Because people don't like being treated that way. And so if your goal is to have this person feeling good about you after this interaction, then you should not do behaviors that typically other people don't like, if that makes sense. We also don't want to use shoulds or guilt trips, because those kinds of things can make the other person feel manipulated or coerced, which is another thing that people typically don't like. Also remember that being gentle means be gentle in your tone of voice, because even nice words can sound harsh if you're being sarcastic, for example. The I stands for act interested. So the idea here is you want to act interested in what the other person is saying because you care about this relationship, even if you're actually not interested, right? You don't have to be interested. You have to act interested. And that means that you show that you're paying attention, right? So look at them, nod your head, maybe a little. Don't interrupt them. Don't talk over them. Don't make, you know how sometimes you're talking to someone and they're making faces that even though they're not saying anything, you can see on their face that they just think you are 100% wrong. Right? Don't make that face. That's acting interested. And then the V is for validate. And validation is so important. If you're ever in doubt about what to do when it comes to talking to another person or responding to another person, just go with validation. So validation is acknowledging the legitimacy of the other person's feelings. And remember that validating is not the same thing as approving of something. So we can absolutely validate why a person feels a certain way without approving of the behavior that they did. So for example, let's say that my partner gets laid off and he's really upset and he punches a hole through the wall. I can say, I totally get why you're upset. Anyone in your situation would be upset, without addressing or approving of the fact that the wall now has a hole in it. So when it comes to validation, there are a couple of different ways that we can validate. So sometimes there's just functional validation, right? If somebody is crying and you give them a hug and you give them some tissue, you're not even saying anything, but it's just functional. You're responding to sort of what they're signaling that they need in the moment, which is comforting. You can also validate based on the person's history, right? So what you're going through makes sense given what you've been through before, okay? There's also validation based on the current situation, which is the sense of like, yeah, anyone in your situation would feel the exact same way. This makes perfect sense. And then there's also being radically genuine. So sometimes you don't know what to say to the other person, but you just do your best to give a genuine response. So for example, I was talking with a good friend of mine recently, and they were very concerned about the prospect that they were going to have to support someone through grief. And basically what I said was, you know, I can see how that if you had to do that, that would be really painful and also super awkward for you, just given the family situation. And even though you can't imagine right now how you would be supportive to that person, I know that if it comes down to it, you're going to figure it out and you're going to do what's needed. Right? So there's an element to validation that's painful, that's awkward, but then also just kind of this radically genuine, like I have faith in you type of response. And then the E is for use an easy manner. And this means basically smile, use a little humor, a light tone of voice within what's appropriate to the situation. And the idea here is that we want to soothe the other person along in the situation and help minimize defensiveness by signaling that this is a safe space. This is a safe interaction, right? So we don't want to signal threat. And some of the ways that we signal threat to other people are things like, you know, we cross our arms, we furrow our brow, right? We frowny face, we get too close to them, we get in their personal space in a way that makes them uncomfortable, we make really big gestures, we point fingers at them, right? Or we're just acting tense. So having an easy manner is the opposite of acting tense. Okay, so because validation is so critical, what I want to do is give you guys an opportunity to practice. So on the next slide, I have 3 scenarios that other people in your life might say to you. And what I want you to do is just try your hand at validating them. And you can either raise your hand or you can just say what you would say to that person in the chat box and Kell will read it. Okay, so let's say that your mom says to you, I'm feeling really anxious about this, what's going to happen with this pandemic. I don't know when it's going to end, and I'm so worried about your grandparents' health. I just hate that I can't check on them. Whenever they've been sick in the past, I could always go take care of them. What would you say to your mom to validate her? Not necessarily thinking about any of the other skills we've talked about, but just the validate part, which remember is sort of some type of communication that the way you feel makes sense.
Anyone have any ideas?
It's a little bit more challenging than the last one.
We have a response.
Woo.
I totally get it. Oop, it's scrolled. I totally get it. I would feel the same way if it were you.
Yeah, great. That is a wonderful all-purpose validation. I would feel exactly the same way. Yeah. In this example, this is also one where we could validate based on past history, right? So notice how she says, I hate that I can't check on them because when they've been sick in the past, I could always go do that. So this is one where we could also say something like, yeah, you know, this is horrible. And, you know, the icing on the horrible cake is that, you know, you've always been able to go take care of them and check on them, and now you can't do that. And so it makes perfect sense that this would be like double scary for you. All right, next one. Let's say that your best friend says, I am so frustrated with my little brother. We've been stuck in the house together and he's been picking on me nonstop. What would you say to your best friend?
Oh, we got one. Little brothers are the worst. What's going on?
Yeah. So, and the tone here is key. So the way Kell read that, like, yeah, little brothers are the absolute worst, you know, with a little levity, a little lightheartedness. So even though verbally we are not saying like your feelings make sense, the acknowledgement of like, this is the worst is really an acknowledgement of how annoying that situation is. All right, so we're gonna skip the last one just in the interest of time, but I will do it for you. So if our partner who has a health condition that makes them more vulnerable to COVID-19 says to us, I'm so scared I'm gonna get sick, I'm just anxious all the time, and I can't seem to settle down, what I might say to that is sort of something like, yeah, you know, I honestly, you know, given all the health difficulties that you've been through and, you know, being immunosuppressed, I can't even imagine what this must feel like for you. if I were in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. And I just want you to know that I'm here for you and I love you so much. Okay. All right, so the last skill set we're going to talk about today are the fast skills. And this is all about the times when we want to maintain our own self-respect, and that is our #1 priority. And so a lot of this is considering the idea of how do I want to feel about myself after this is over, right? It can also be standing up for yourself or doing what you believe is right. So the F stands for be fair. And so you want to consider what's fair to you, but also what's fair to the other person. If you were in the other person's shoes, what would you want? Okay. So if we always do what we want to do, it might lead to feeling badly about ourselves, depending on our value system. On the other hand, if we always do what other people want us to do, it probably will also lead to feeling badly about ourselves. And so being fair really means finding a balance between our legitimate needs and rights and the other person's legitimate needs and rights. Okay? The A stands for no apologies. So it is totally okay and appropriate and even advisable to apologize when you are wrong. But you should not apologize when you're not wrong, okay? So don't over apologize. Don't apologize when you haven't done anything wrong, because that sends the wrong message, right? Tells the other person that you have something to be sorry about, even when you don't, right? Don't apologize just for asking for something, and don't apologize for having an opinion, right? The S means stick to your values, right? So here you want to think about what your values are, what's important to you. So for example, some of my major values are things like being ethical, being trustworthy, being dependable, and being loyal. And you might have totally different values, and that is totally okay. The point is you should stick to your own values. It is almost impossible to feel good about yourself when you violate your own values. So feeling good about yourself after a situation is over means that you have to stick to your values. And then the T is for be truthful. So lying can make you feel worse about yourself, and it can also be very damaging to relationships. Acting helpless when you're not helpless is also another form of not being truthful, right? So even if these behaviors get you what you want, you might not feel good about yourself if you're tricking people into helping you or give you what you want. Okay. And because the fast skills are really about maintaining our own good feelings about ourselves rather than other people's, we really have to focus on like, what can I do here that I'm going to feel good about at the end of the day? All right. So summing it all up, to close, when tensions are running really high, it is so much more important that we be skillful in our actions with other people, in our interactions with other people. And the skills that we learned today, as I said, they can be combined with one another. So for example, you notice that when I was responding to some of the examples, I did a dear man, but I put some validation in there. I was pretty gentle with the language that I used, okay? So if you're talking to someone that you really care about, you can absolutely use dear man as a way to construct what you want to say, but then make sure that you have chosen gentle language, that you act interested in however they're responding to you, that you validate their feelings, and that you use an easy manner throughout the interaction. And these skills take a lot of practice. So one of the things you can do is you can try writing out what you want to say or writing out what you want to have happen, and just refer back to these acronyms to check that you're doing it according to the skill. And the last thing is, don't expect perfection, right? You can only do your best. give yourself so much grace as you are learning these skills. As I mentioned at the beginning, usually it takes about 6 hours in therapy to teach all of this, and we do a lot of practice with patients. So this was just a very quick overview, but I really, really hope that you guys have found it helpful. And I'd be happy to answer a question or two before I hand it over to Kell to wrap things up.
I think for the sake of time, we might skip the questions for now, but I'll put my email up at the end and people can always reach out to me and I'll do the connections. Maddy, if you don't mind, go ahead and share your screen. I think, Carla, you got to stop with the screen share. Just so participants know, we have like literally 2 more slides we're going to go through real quick, which includes a giveaway. And so hopefully you just stick around for another minute or 2. You have to change the view again, Maddy, for the...
You good now?
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, so very quickly, before you guys leave today, we want to provide some extra resources to help cope with COVID. The first is being DBT skills for a pandemic. We know the coronavirus can be a very stressful time, so we have a PDF where you can check out different DBT skills that relate heavily to coronavirus. And another reputable source is the CDC. What we like to say at EMBRACE is check the facts, have reputable resources. And the CDC is always providing up-to-date, and it's our go-to for EMBRACE on finding reliable news on coronavirus. And they have great tips on coping with COVID and coping with anxiety and stress during COVID. And very quickly, like I mentioned, our giveaway. So EMBRACE and Active Minds are teaming up with Lady Gaga's foundation, Born This Way, to help spread kindness through their initiative, Channel Kindness. And today at the end of the webinar, if you guys fill out the survey and the address, we will send you 3 pre-stamped postcards that you can send to a graduating senior to help recognize them for all the hard work they did this year, and just send them a thank you and during this tough time. And that'll be at the end of the survey, like Kell said, that you can fill out your address and other information. And Kell.
So quickly, so the survey for this session should pop up at the end of this session. I will tell you in advance, I will email all the participants on the list the link to the survey as well, and I'll highlight a few of these resources for us, and I will make sure you have the link to the web recording of this webinar. So if you want to reference that later or share it with other folks, if you found it really useful, we would be happy for you to do that. So just a few more things from Active Minds. We have a very active COVID hub that's updated daily. We have all of our upcoming webinars on there and our previously recorded ones. So just go to activeminds.org/remote resources. If you're a student, we have a very robust student Slack network right now. It's a lot of fun. We've got a bunch of different channels. We're sharing memes, we're sharing podcasts, we're sharing tips for self-soothing. So it's all over the place, but we're having a lot of fun in there. So feel free to go to activeminds.org/Slack to figure out how to join us. If you need more resources for your chapters, the chapter link is there. And I have included my email, which is Kell at activeminds.org. So if anybody has any follow-up questions, comments, concerns, etc., feel free to hit me up and we will go from there to loop you to who you need. But regardless, thank you, all of you, for participating today. We had a lot of fun. I know I learned a few things. I hope you all learned a few things. And we look forward to seeing you again. Feel free to reach out if you need anything.